The Wyoming Colorado Railroad was originally built between 1901 and 1911 as the Laramie, Hans Peak, and Pacific Railway, running west from Laramie to serve the gold, copper, coal, and iron mines that were anticipated to be developed in the Medicine Bow Mountains west of Laramie. When these revenues did not develop as anticipated, Isaac Van Horn, the railroad's developer, decided to take his railroad and turn south at Centennial, Wyoming, with plans to run south and west to reach Steamboat Springs and eventually to tie into the Denver and Rio Grande at Grand Junction, Colorado, and, as all early railroads, on to the Pacific. As you listen to the sound of the horn and the roar of the engines, this scenic train will take you back in time, back to an era of yesteryear, when this little railroad was influential in the development of the western frontier. But now, let's go back just a couple of years to the days of glory when the excursion train was hauling laughing and happy people across the high plains, through the Centennial Valley, up along the Albany Loops, along the beautiful stands of pine and aspen, until the train finally reached Lake Owen and Fox Park. Many memories were made over the years by the people traversing this lovely part of American railroading. Now it will become just memories. A July morning finds us in Laramie getting ready for the daily passenger run of the excursion train running on the Wyoming Colorado line from Laramie to Lake Owen. Cars were cleaned, windows were scrubbed, food was stocked, equipment checked, water tanks filled. Everything was being made ready for the day's run. The train ride begins at the Wyoming Territorial Prison, which is a beautiful museum very much worth a visit while in Laramie. Butch Cassidy was one of the long-term guests of this territorial prison. Engineer and layout designer Jim Pallow arrives and makes his way to the pair of FP7 locomotives. While JP and Jerry make sure everything is in readiness for the day's run, Handlebar and Stephanie greet the passengers and direct them to their proper seating. The train climbs out of the Laramie Valley up onto the high plains and runs west for about 30 miles until it will reach the town of Centennial, Wyoming. During the Great Western Exploration of the 1840s, those brave and sturdy souls heading for California, Utah, and Oregon came through this region. Wagon wheel ruts from those early pioneers are still visible today. These hardy pioneers formed the Overland Trail, which is located west of Laramie and continues through the Bridger Pass onto the Oregon Trail, where it joins just north of the North Platte River. With the opening of the Transcontinental Railway in 1868, eastern markets for beef were cemented, and the future for Wyoming cattle ranchers became a reality. The rugged, self-reliant, and enterprising cowboy spirit still lives on in this modern western frontier. Much history has taken place along this route by pioneer wagon trains. Today it is rich with cattle ranches and hay fields, backdropped with the beautiful snowy ranges of the Medicine Bow Mountains. After turning south at Centennial, the Excursion Train makes its climb up the amazing Albany Loops, leaving the valley in a series of 5 giant switchbacks with 12-degree curves and constant 2% grades, rising an elevation of nearly 1,000 feet while traversing approximately 7 miles, all within 2 direct air miles. This is real mountain railroading, and as you can see, the locomotives pull hard to bring this consist up to the top of the Albany Loops. Tourists are thrilled by the variety of scenery from high deserts to mountain forests as the train continues its climb up the Albany Loops, back and forth, always gaining elevation. The railroad crosses through the town of Albany 3 times while the train switchbacks back and forth up the loops, always higher and higher. From Albany, the tracks continue the high country climb to the beautiful Lake Owen, which is the final destination of this scenic trip. As we gain altitude, the vistas become much more open and spectacular. The construction of the Albany Loops has always been an engineering marvel and has held interest for other civil engineers throughout the world, as they have visited and studied the construction of this amazing series of railroad loops. The beautiful Medicine Bow National Forest offers an undisturbed and pristine view to all of the passengers. JP eases the consist into the Lake Owen trackage for a brief layover for the passengers. The Union Pacific merged this railroad into their system in 1935, and in 1951 it was named the Colmont Branch. The line was sold to the Wyoming Colorado in 1987.
Throttle. I'm using the throttle a notch at a time here, just throttle 1. If I pull it out all the way to throttle 1 and leave it, we go too fast, so I bump it in and out just to catch a little bit of amperage. And the bell is on because we're going past the passenger train, and I want to warn people. And when we get run around here, we'll go through the next switch at the other end of the siding and then come back into the train and make a joint on it. This is the engine brake. This is what you use for stopping engine only. Train brake. These are the air gauges relative to the air brake system. Supply air and how much air is in the brake pipe.
After uncoupling the locomotives, JP runs around the passenger consist on the siding and comes in from the back end of the train to couple on to make the return trip to Laramie. In the meantime, the passengers enjoy the beautiful view of mountain scenery and the lovely Lake Owen.
We're at the depot. The train brakes are set. So the first order of business, after the conductor gives a high ball, is to put the reverser into forward position, release the locomotive air. Once it's released, we're ready to start pulling on the train. So to announce our movement, we'll turn the bell on. And we'll pull a horn, a couple of blasts. Then we'll pull the throttle out one notch to get some tension on the train. We'll release the train brakes. And as the amperage comes up on the engine, we'll start moving the first 2 or 3 cars. But that throttle setting will not be enough to move the train, so then we'll start adding throttle. A little at a time, giving the ammeter time to come up. And a little more. And once we get up to 6 or 7 miles an hour, we'll have to back down on the amperage a little bit with the throttle and maintain 6 or 7 miles an hour until we get on the main line. Then we'll use the throttle to maintain whatever the track speed is on that given piece of track. In this case, it's 10 miles an hour out of town and then 20 out on the main line. The FP7, which is what this locomotive is built by Electromotive Division of General Motors. These were built in 1953. In the designation, the F means car body design, which in this case is a streamlined car body. The P means that these were built with boilers, because all original passenger trains were heated by steam. Therefore, these diesels had boilers and water tanks. The 7 has to do with the electrical equipment. Basically, the only difference between a 7 and a 9 in designation is the electrical equipment. There are also other F series built as 9s. These engines were owned by the Alaska Railroad before we got them, and that's why they have snowplows on them. I have painted them in a reminiscent Rock Island scheme only because that's what I happen to like.
The excursion train is ready to make its way back down to the Centennial Valley and to Laramie. Lake Owen is a natural lake which plays a vital role in the Cheyenne water supply. It is famous for its various forms of trout. The crew must use caution coming down from Lake Owen, as it is a fairly constant 2% grade back to the Centennial Valley in Laramie. What no one knew, that this would be the last full season for the Wyoming Colorado Excursion Train. During the last year of its life, the abandonment had been applied for and granted for removal of all trackage in the state of Colorado, which would end rail service into the state of Colorado on the Wyco. Therefore, during the last few months of its operation, the name on the Wyoming and Colorado locomotives was changed to the Wyoming Scenic. The excursion train finishes coming down the loops, turns north up through the Centennial Valley towards the town of Centennial. Centennial, then and now, is known as Gateway to the Snowies. The long pole up Miller Hill, the heaviest grade on the railroad. Notice the names on all of the passenger cars, as each represents local towns or points of interest in the area. The vintage 1938 and 1946 Streamliner coaches originally ran from Chicago to Los Angeles on the famous Santa Fe's El Capitan. The concession car, the Emmett Kelly, was once owned by the world-renowned circus clown. It was purchased by him for his personal rail car after he retired from a long and famous circus career. Now the train makes its way down the straight trackage, heading back into Laramie, Wyoming. The train arrives in Laramie, pulls into the siding, and unloads its tired but happy passengers, all with extra special memories of a very special day. We were fortunate to be in Laramie when the last revenue freight run was conducted by the Wyoming Colorado Railroad from Walden, Colorado. Engineer JP Pallow and his conductor, Lloyd Brown, bring the pair of FP7 locomotives out of Laramie, being assisted by an EMD GP9 diesel, which is the third locomotive on the Wyoming Colorado engine roster. This last revenue freight run was made July 6, 1994, between Walden, Colorado and Laramie, Wyoming. Track removal for all Colorado trackage is now planned for the following year. The Louisiana Pacific Mill at Walden is one of the last paying customers for the railroad. Timber shortages are causing the shutdown of this mill. So come with us now and let's watch the three Wyoming Colorado locomotives head west across the high plains towards Centennial. The two FP7 locomotives and the GP9 approach Centennial, cross the highway, past the old hotel and depot, and then turn south into the Centennial Valley on the way to pick up the last revenue freight run ever to move over this line from Walden, Colorado. This is the pictorial of that last revenue freight run from Walden. The consist is 22 wood chip cars being removed for the last time prior to the dismantling of the railroad. 5 of the chip cars are loaded, 17 are empty and being returned to the Union Pacific at Laramie. The 5 loads will be sent on to Arizona, where the chips will be used in making cardboard boxes. All the way through the valley, the scenes are framed by the spectacular Medicine Bow Mountains. The beginning of the climb creates a majestic picture of real mountain railroading. That amazing feat of railroad engineering, the Albany Loops. This is the only place in North America where you can stand at the top, look down, and see 5 layers of track work. Here we catch the 3 locomotives passing the town of Albany and continuing up the 7 miles of loops. The crew brings the 3 EMD locomotives to Lake Owen, that beautiful, pristine, and memorable lake. Here, they'll make a brief stop to check the locomotives. Then it's off again to the top. The mournful echoing of the diesel horns in these high basins is a proper epitaph to the demise of a gallant little railroad. Cattle ranching has been one of the primary activities in this high mountain area. In earlier times, trains were the primary means of bringing livestock back and forth from summer pastures and shipment of livestock to market. Today, all of this is done by truck. Sadly, the echoing horns of the Wyoming Colorado diesels will soon be silenced from these beautiful mountains and valleys, never more to be heard again. Here is a dramatic view as JP and Jerry bring their 3 EMD locomotives over the top on their way to the mill at Walden, Colorado. The original promotion plans for the Laramie, Hans Peak, and Pacific Railroad called for a continuation of the main line from this Y at Northgate, Colorado, to run west and join with the Denver Rio Grande Western near Grand Junction, Colorado. However, the original plans never materialized, and this original branch that ran south to Colmont, Colorado from this Northgate Junction became the only line of the railroad from this point. JP is turning the locomotives on the Y at Northgate to reverse the locomotives, thereby putting the GP9 as the lead locomotive for the last 20-mile run into Walden. This would allow the use of one of the FP7s on the lead on the return from Walden to Laramie. The crew will now make the 20-mile run south through the North Park of Colorado to the town of Walden and the Louisiana Pacific Mill. The Louisiana Pacific Mill at Walden specialized in the fabrication of 2x4 lumber. The local shortage of trees in the area and timber cutbacks created by concern for the spotted owl caused the company to close the mill. This movement you are seeing now was the removal of the last of the cars hauling wood chips. 5 of the cars were loaded with chips, 17 were empty. The closing of the lumber mill was scheduled in just a few days. Never again would Walden, Colorado see a revenue freight run leaving the town. JP and Floyd eased the 3 diesel locomotives and the consist out of the Louisiana Pacific yard for the last time. The crew pulled the chip cars out onto the main line, ran around the cars on siding, coupled onto the front end, and again put 1512 on the lead. And they prepared to depart north for the crossing of the Snowy Range for the delivery of this final Walden consist to the Union Pacific at Laramie, Wyoming. Here are a few run-bys taken for the last time as the Waco works its way north. It's hard to believe these locomotives are approaching 50 years of age. Truly a great compliment to Electromotive Division products and American engineering. Some of the interesting wildlife to be seen along the right-of-way are antelope, white-tailed deer, mule deer, elk, coyotes, and an occasional bald eagle or black bear. a final salute to an old friend. After completing the Albany loops and working north through the valley, the crew eases the consist of chip cars through the town of Centennial. Then it will turn east towards Windmill Hollow, Miller Hill, the High Plains, and Laramie for delivery of these cars to the Union Pacific. Centennial is an enchanting little town right out of the Old West, dating back to 1875. After the 1840s, the U.S. military increased their presence in the area due to the increased Indian conflicts. Trading posts, originally built for fur traders, became military outposts to protect the new settlers along the overland route. Part of this route eventually became the transcontinental telegraph and railroad line that we know today as the Union Pacific. The three veteran EMD diesels show their stuff as they pull this consist up Miller Hill. After crossing the plains and dropping into Laramie, we find JP and Floyd delivering the chip cars to the Union Pacific. After uncoupling from the chip cars, JP takes the siding and passes by the chip cars while working his way back to the Wyoming Colorado yards. JP uncouples the GP9, the third locomotive, and couples the two FP7s to the passenger consist in preparation for tomorrow morning's run of the Excursion Train. Number 1365 is pulled off onto its appropriate siding. Sadly, the next probable assignment for this locomotive will be as part of a wrecking train removing rails from Walden, Colorado. With this last revenue freight run of the Wyoming Colorado, the last page of history is now written in the book of this valiant and brave little railroad. And the book will now be closed and stored in the minds and memories of a few who will continue to talk about the days of grandeur of the Colorado-Wyoming Railroad. After securing the locomotive, JP prepares to leave for the evening.
The last revenue freight run of the Wyoming Colorado Railroad, Colmont branch, July 6, 1994. It's all over now.